The African savanna stretches out like a golden ocean, wild and untamed, whispering stories of survival in every rustle of grass. It's a place where danger and beauty dance together, where the heartbeat of nature feels almost too big for a human to hold. Amara, a seasoned ranger with eyes that seem to see straight into the soul of the wild, patrols this land with a quiet courage that's earned her respect among her team. She's seen it all, or so she thought. One dusty afternoon, a faint cry pierces the hum of cicadas, pulling her heart like a magnet. It's a sound that doesn't belong, fragile yet fierce, and it's about to change everything. Who hasn't felt that tug, that call to step into the unknown for something greater than themselves? This is a story of compassion and connection, of humans and animals meeting in a moment that feels like a gift from the universe. Picture the scene: a lone ranger, a desperate cub, and a pride of lions watching from the shadows. It's the kind of tale that makes you lean in, wondering how far someone would go to save a life. Amara's about to face danger head-on, not just for a cub, but for the fragile trust between the wild and those who protect it. Conservation isn't just her job, it's her promise to the world. Ready to feel your heart race? Let's step into the savannah, where a single cry sparks a rescue that'll stay with you long after the sun sets. What would you do if you heard that call? The savannah was alive that afternoon, the air thick with the scent of dry earth and distant rain. Amara's boots crunched against the brittle grass as she scanned the horizon, her heart tuned to the wild like an old radio finding its signal. She'd been a ranger for over a decade, her skin etched with stories of close calls and quiet victories, but nothing prepared her for the sound that stopped her cold, a weak, trembling wail, like a child lost in the dark. It came from a patch of scrub near an old water tower, abandoned and rusted, a relic of human greed that didn't belong in this sacred place. Her pulse quickened, urging her closer. What kind of creature could make a sound so raw, so full of fight? She crouched low, her breath shallow, as the cry came again, sharper now, laced with pain. The savannah seemed to hold its breath, the usual chatter of birds falling silent, as if nature itself was watching. Amara parted the thorny bushes, her hands steady despite the adrenaline singing in her veins. There, wedged in a jagged steel pipe half buried in the dirt, was a lion cub, no bigger than a house cat, its tawny fur matted with blood and dust. Its tiny body thrashed, paws scraping uselessly against the metal, eyes wide with a mix of fear and defiance. Who hasn't seen that look in a creature fighting for its life, that spark that says, "I'm not done yet"? The cub's struggle was a mirror to Amara's own courage, a call she couldn't ignore. But how had it gotten stuck in such a cruel trap? The pipe was a remnant of an old drilling project, left behind like a scar on the land. Amara's fingers brushed the rough steel, still warm from the sun, and she winced at the thought of the cub's pain. The cub's cries grew fainter, its strength fading, but its eyes locked onto hers, pleading in a language older than words. She radioed her team, her voice calm but urgent, knowing time was slipping away. Conservation wasn't just about protecting land, it was about saving souls like this one, caught in the wreckage of human mistakes. The thorns scratched her arms as she leaned closer, their sting a sharp reminder of the wild's unyielding edges. As she waited for help, a rustle in the grass made her freeze. Was something, or someone, watching? The answer was closer than she thought. Her team arrived, their jeep kicking up clouds of red dust that stung her eyes and coated her throat. Juma, wiry and weathered, carried a toolbox slung over his shoulder, while Lila, the rookie, clutched a water bottle like a lifeline. They moved with practiced quiet, aware that the savannah was never truly safe. Amara knelt beside the cub, whispering soft words, though she wasn't sure if they were for the animal or herself. The cub's breathing was shallow now, each gasp a reminder of the stakes. She could feel the weight of the wild around her, the unseen eyes of its guardians. Courage wasn't just rushing in, it was staying steady when every instinct screamed to run. As the team assessed the pipe, a low growl rumbled from the shadows, chilling her blood. What had they just walked into? The growl wasn't just a sound, it was, deep and primal, vibrating through the earth. Amara's hand hovered over her radio, her mind racing. The cub's cries had drawn more than her team, they'd summoned the pride. She glanced at the tall grass, where golden eyes glinted like coins in the fading light, their gaze heavy with judgment. This wasn't just a rescue anymore, it was a test of trust between human and wild. The cub's life hung in the balance, and so did their own. Juma's fingers tightened on his wrench, and Lila's breath hitched, her eyes wide but resolute. The savannah's pulse seemed to slow, waiting for their next move. How do you save a life when danger is already circling? The savannah seemed to tighten around Amara like a held breath, the air heavy with the musky tang of lion fur and the faint metallic bite of the rusty pipe. Her team, Juma, the wiry mechanic with a knack for staying calm, and Lila, the rookie whose hands trembled but whose eyes burned with grit, stood frozen, their tools glinting in the slanting sunlight. The cub's whimpers had softened, each one a faint plea that twisted Amara's heart, but those golden eyes in the grass were what pinned her in place. A leonine silhouette shifted, massive paws silent on the earth, and her stomach nodded. Ever feel like the world's watching, waiting for you to make a move? That's where Amara was, caught between courage and the wild's unspoken rules. She signaled Juma with a subtle nod, her throat dry as the dust coating her lips. He crouched beside the pipe, inspecting the cub's trapped hind leg, but his glance kept darting to the grass. "It's the pride," he whispered, voice low like he was afraid the wind might carry it. "The mothers out there, maybe all of them." Amara's eyes traced the shadows, catching the flick of a tail, the glint of a fawn. The Leoa, broad-shouldered and scarred from battles Amara could only imagine, stared with an intensity that felt like a conversation, part warning, part plea. Empathy wasn't just feeling for the cub, it was understanding a mother's fear, wild and fierce. The grass swayed, hiding the pride's numbers, and Amara's skin prickled with the weight of their gaze. But how do you earn trust when danger's breath is warm on your neck? Lila clutched a water bottle, her knuckles pale, and murmured, "What if they think we're hurting him?" The question hung like the heat, pressing against Amara's resolve. She knelt closer to the cub, its tiny ribs heaving under matted fur, and whispered, "We're here to help, little one." The cub's eyes, cloudy with pain, met hers, and for a moment, it felt like a sign from the universe, a fragile connection across species. But the Leoa's growl rumbled again, closer now, vibrating through Amara's boots. The pride was circling, their movements a silent symphony of power. Conservation meant respecting the wild, not just saving it, but could they convince the pride of their intentions before it was too late? Juma motioned to the jeep, where a tranquilizer gun lay under a tarp, but Amara shook her head. "No darts," she said firmly. "We spook her, we lose the cub, and maybe more." Her voice was steady, but her pulse thrummed like a drumbeat. The Leoa stepped forward, her massive head low, ears pinned back, and Amara felt the weight of her gaze, heavy as the savannah itself. It was a dance of trust, one wrong step away from disaster. The cub whimpered, and the Leoa's eyes flicked to it, then back to Amara, as if weighing her soul. Who hasn't stood at a crossroads, knowing one choice could change everything? The team needed to act, but how do you move when a mother's love is the most dangerous thing in the wild? The sun dipped lower, painting the grass in hues of fire and shadow, and the tension coiled tighter. Amara's mind raced, every second the cub stayed trapped, its chances dwindled, but rushing could spark a charge from the pride. She glanced at her team, their faces etched with the same question. Could they outsmart the wild without breaking its trust? The Leoa's tail twitched, a signal Amara knew too well from years in the field. Time was running out, and the next move wasn't just about rescue, it was about proving humans could belong in this sacred, savage world. Juma's quiet hum, a habit from his village, grounded her for a moment, but the weight of the moment pressed harder. What happens when the wild decides whether you're friend or foe? The savannah hummed with a tense quiet, broken only by the soft clink of Juma's tools and the cub's faint, shuddering breaths. Amara knelt beside the pipe, her hands steady despite the Leoa's eyes boring into her from the grass, close enough now to smell the wild heat of her fur. The air carried a sharp tang of sweat and metal, mingling with the sweet, fleeting scent of acacia blooms stirred by a restless breeze. The cub's hind leg was wedged tight, the steel biting into its flesh, and every twitch sent a pang through Amara's chest. Who hasn't felt that ache, wanting to fix a hurt but knowing one wrong move could make it worse? This rescue demanded more than courage, it needed a delicate dance of compassion. Amara grabbed a water bottle from Lila, her fingers brushing the rookie's trembling ones. "We'll ease him out," she murmured, pouring a slow stream over the cub's leg. The water glistened, catching the last rays of the sun like tiny sparks of hope, but the cub flinched, its claws scraping the pipe with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. She tore a strip from her bandana, soaking it to slide between the steel and the cub's fur, hoping to reduce the friction. The Leoa's ears twitched, her massive form inching closer, and Amara's heart thudded. Empathy meant feeling the cub's pain, but also the mother's fear. Was she seeing help or harm? The breeze carried a faint hum of insects, a reminder of the savannah's indifference to their struggle. Could they prove their intentions before the wild's patience ran out? Juma, crouched low, inspected the pipe's jagged edge, his face creased with focus. "It's too tight," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Pull too hard, we'll break his leg." The words landed like stones, heavy with truth. Amara's mind raced, picturing the cub's future, limping, unable to hunt, left behind by the pride. Conservation wasn't just saving a life, it was giving it a chance to thrive in the selvagem world. She adjusted the cloth, her fingers slick with water and grime, and tried to wiggle the cub's leg. It whimpered, a sound that felt like a plea to the universe itself. But the pipe held fast, unyielding as the danger circling them. Lila's eyes darted between the cub and the grass, her breath uneven but determined. "What do you do when gentleness isn't enough?" Lila, her voice shaky but determined, offered a small jar of cooking oil from the Jeep's supplies. "Maybe this'll help," she said, a nervous laugh escaping like a bubble. Amara couldn't help but smile, trust Lila to bring a kitchen fix to the savannah. They drizzled the oil, its earthy scent clashing with the metallic air, and worked it into the gap. The cub squirmed, its tiny body trembling, but the oil started to loosen the steel's grip. The Leoa growled, low and guttural, her paws pressing divots into the dirt. Connection wasn't just with the cub, it was convincing a mother that humans could be allies. Juma's quiet nod, a rare sign of hope, spurred them on, but the pipe's resistance lingered. Would the oil be enough, or were they running out of time? The cub's cries grew sharper, each one a reminder that every second mattered. Amara's hands moved with a surgeon's precision, but the pipe was relentless, its rusty teeth refusing to let go. The team exchanged glances, their faces lit by the fading glow of dusk, and Amara knew they were all thinking the same thing: gentleness might not cut it. The Leoa's tail lashed, her patience thinning like the light. They needed a bolder plan, one that balanced trust with action, before the wild made its own choice. The savannah's vastness seemed to close in, its silence urging them to decide. How do you save a life when the tools of kindness aren't strong enough? The savannah's dusk wrapped Amara in a cloak of amber and shadow, the air now sharp with the bite of cooling earth and the faint, oily residue clinging to her hands. The cub's whimpers had grown faint, each one a fragile thread tying her to this moment, but the pipe's rusty jaws refused to yield. Juma's eyes met hers, and he spoke the words they'd all been dreading: "We need to cut it." The idea hit like a gust of wind, chilling despite the heat. Sawing steel meant noise, sparks, and a terrified cub, with the Leoa's massive form looming just steps away. Ever wonder how you find courage when every choice feels like a gamble? Amara's heart pounded, but she nodded, trusting the wild's fragile balance. Juma hauled a battery-powered saw from the Jeep, its blade gleaming like a crescent moon. The hum of its motor sliced through the quiet, a harsh, mechanical snarl that made the cub flinch and the Leoa's ears pin back. Amara knelt closer, her voice a soft chant over the cub's trembling body: "Hold on, brave one, we're almost there." Sparks flew as Juma began cutting, tiny embers dancing like fireflies before sizzling out in the dirt. The Leoa growled, her paws shifting, and Amara's stomach twisted. Empathy for the mother meant knowing she heard threat in that noise. Lila's quick glance, her eyes wide with both fear and resolve, anchored Amara's focus. Could they keep her trust when the air itself screamed danger? Lila stood guard, her flashlight beam wobbling as she scanned the grass for the pride. "She's closer," she hissed, her voice tight but steady. The Leoa's eyes glowed in the dusk, twin lanterns of instinct and fear, and Amara felt the weight of her gaze like a physical touch. The saw's screech was deafening, each grind of metal a test of the cub's endurance and the team's nerve. Conservation wasn't just about saving one life, it was about proving humans could mend what they'd broken. The cub's tiny claws scraped weakly, and Amara stroked its head, her fingers brushing fur soft as a whisper. The savannah's fading light seemed to urge them on, a silent plea to finish what they'd started. But would the saw free it before the Leoa's patience snapped? The pipe began to give, a sliver of steel peeling back like a reluctant confession. Juma's hands were steady, but sweat beaded on his brow, glistening in the flashlight's glow. The cub squirmed, its cries sharper now, as if sensing freedom or pain. Amara's throat tightened, every spark felt like a countdown, every growl a warning that the selvagem world was watching. She murmured to the cub, words spilling out like a prayer to the stars above, "You're stronger than this trap." The Leoa stepped closer, her breath a low rumble, and Amara's pulse raced. Connection meant meeting the wild halfway, but what if halfway was too far for a mother's heart? The saw's final cut rang out, a metallic groan that echoed across the savannah like a victory cry. The pipe split, but the cub was still caught, its leg pinned by a stubborn shard. Juma paused, wiping his face, and Amara's eyes locked with the Leoa's, a silent plea for time. The team had come this far, their hands blistered and hearts raw, but the rescue hung on a knife's edge. The cub's life, the Leoa's trust, and their own safety were tangled in this moment, and the next move would decide it all. The savannah's vastness seemed to hold them in its palm, waiting for the outcome. How do you finish a fight when the wild's watching, ready to judge? The savannah held its breath as the last sliver of steel groaned under Juma's saw, the air thick with the acrid sting of scorched metal and the raw, living scent of the cub's matted fur. Amara's hands, slick with oil and grime, cradled the cub's trembling body, her whispers a steady hum against the fading screech of the blade. The Leoa stood mere feet away, her massive form a silhouette against the twilight's purple glow, her breath a rhythmic huff that seemed to pulse with the earth itself. The cub's eyes, glassy but fierce, locked onto Amara's, and for a moment, it felt like the universe was whispering back, this was their chance. Who hasn't dreamed of a moment where compassion wins, where a life is set free? But the wild wasn't done testing them yet. Juma eased the saw back, his arms trembling from the strain, and Amara gently tugged at the cub's leg. The pipe's jagged edge gave way with a soft clink, like a lock finally turning, and the cub slid free, its tiny body collapsing into her arms. She gasped, half laugh, half sob, as the cub's warmth pressed against her chest, its heartbeat a frantic drum against her own. The team froze, their eyes darting to the Leoa, who lunged forward, her paws thudding on the dirt. "Back!" Amara hissed, her voice sharp but calm, urging her team to retreat. Empathy wasn't just holding the cub, it was knowing when to let the wild reclaim its own. The savannah's stillness seemed to amplify every sound, every heartbeat. But would the Leoa see their rescue as a gift or a theft? The cub stirred, its tiny paws scrabbling against Amara's shirt, and she lowered it to the ground, her hands shaking with the weight of the moment. The Leoa's growl softened, her eyes narrowing as she sniffed the air, catching the cub's scent. The cub stumbled toward her, a wobbly but determined step, and the Leoa's massive head dipped, her tongue rasping over its fur in a gesture so tender it stole Amara's breath. The pride, hidden in the grass, rumbled low, a chorus of acceptance that vibrated through the savannah. Conservation was more than saving a life, it was restoring a bond, a family, to the selvagem heart of nature. Lila's quiet gasp, a mix of awe and relief, echoed Amara's own heart. But had they earned the pride's trust, or was this reunion just a pause in the danger? Amara stepped back, her boots sinking into the soft earth, her heart swelling with a joy that felt almost holy. The cub nuzzled its mother, its cries now soft chirps, and the Leoa's gaze flicked to Amara, not with threat, but with something like recognition. It was a connection, fragile as a spider's web, spun from shared fear and hope. Lila whispered, "Think she knows we helped," and Amara smiled, wiping dust from her cheek. "Maybe she does, kid." The team stood in silence, their tools forgotten, watching the cub and Leoa melt into the twilight. Resgate wasn't just freeing a body, it was freeing a piece of the wild soul. The savannah's vastness seemed to embrace them, if only for a moment. But would this moment linger, or was it time to slip away? The Leoa turned, her cub tottering at her side, and began to pad toward the grass, her tail flicking like a quiet farewell. Amara's chest ached with a bittersweet pang, relief, pride, and the humbling truth that the wild didn't belong to them. The cubs' freedom was a victory, but it came with a cost: the blisters on their hands, the fear in their hearts, and the trust they'd gambled to earn. The savannah seemed to sigh, its colors softening as night crept in, and Amara wondered if they'd left a mark on the wild, or if it had changed them instead. Juma's quiet hum returned, a soft anchor in the stillness, grounding them as they faced the end of this chapter. What do you hold on to when the moment you fought for slips back into the shadows? The savannah exhaled into the night, its golden hues now a tapestry of indigo and silver, laced with the crisp, clean scent of dew settling on grass. Amara stood rooted, her boots heavy with the day's dust, watching the Leoa and her cub meld into the shadows. The cub's tiny form, still wobbly but defiant, paused for a heartbeat, its head turning back toward her. Those wide, amber eyes caught the starlight, glinting like a quiet thank you, and Amara's chest tightened with a warmth that felt like a gift from the wild itself. Ever had a moment that feels too big for words, like the universe just handed you a secret? This was Amara's, a fleeting connection that made every blister and fear worthwhile. The team lingered, their breaths soft in the cooling air, the Jeep's engine ticking as it cooled nearby. Lila's flashlight dangled forgotten in her hand, its beam pooling on the ground like spilled moonlight. "Think he'll be okay?" she asked, her voice small but threaded with hope. Amara glanced at the Leoa's retreating form, her tail a gentle sway, and nodded. "He's got her." "That's enough." The pride's low rumbles faded into the distance, a reminder that nature's strength didn't need human hands to endure. Conservation was about stepping in, but also stepping back, letting the selvagem world weave its own story. The faint call of a night bird stirred the air, a gentle nudge to let go. But could they carry this moment without holding it too tight? The cub's backward glance replayed in Amara's mind, a symbol of trust earned through sweat and heart. She brushed her hands, still sticky with oil and fur, and felt the weight of the day settle into her bones, not exhaustion, but something deeper, like the savannah had carved a piece of itself into her. Juma chuckled softly, breaking the silence. That cub's telling his mom we're not so bad. The team laughed, a quiet release, their faces softened by the starlight. Compassion wasn't just saving a life, it was planting a seed of understanding between human and wild. The memory of the cub's wobbly steps lingered, a spark of hope in their tired hearts. But what do you do when the wild gives you a gift you can't keep? The savannah stretched endless before them, its whispers of wind and distant hyena calls a lullaby for the night. Amara climbed into the Jeep, her eyes lingering on the spot where the cub had vanished. The pipe lay discarded, a broken relic of human error, but the cub's freedom felt like a small redemption. Resgate was more than cutting steel, it was building a bridge, however fragile, across the divide of species. She wondered if the cub would grow strong, if the pride would remember this night. The universe didn't always answer, but sometimes it left you signs, like a cub's glance, or a Leoa's trust. The Jeep's rumble felt like a heartbeat, carrying them back to their world, forever changed. How do you say goodbye to a moment that changes you forever? As the Jeep's headlights pierced the dark, Amara felt the savannah's pulse linger in her veins, a rhythm of courage and connection that would carry her through countless patrols. The cub was gone, back to the wild's embrace, but its story wasn't over, it lived in the team's quiet pride, in the hope they'd kindled. The stars above seemed brighter, as if nodding in approval, and Amara smiled, her heart full. The wild didn't belong to them, but for one night, they'd belonged to it. The road ahead stretched long, but the memory of those amber eyes would light her way, a reminder of why she fought for this land. What stays with you when you leave the wild behind, carrying only its lessons in your soul? The savannah fades into the night, but Amara's story burns bright, a testament to what happens when courage meets compassion in the heart of the wild. That cub, now scampering under the Leoa's watchful eye, carries a spark of hope, a reminder that even in a world of rusty pipes and human mistakes, trust can bloom where empathy takes root. Picture it, a ranger's steady hands, a mother's fierce love, and a cub's defiant glance, all woven into a moment that feels like a handshake with nature itself. Conservation isn't just a job, it's a promise to listen, to act, to let the wild teach us. Who hasn't felt that pull, that longing to be part of something bigger? This tale isn't just about a rescue, it's about connection between humans, animals, and the fragile, beautiful world we share. Amara and her team didn't just free a cub, they built a bridge, proving that even in the face of danger, understanding can change the story. The savannah keeps its secrets, but it left them with a truth: sometimes, the greatest teachers have 4 paws and a roar. So, take a moment, think about the animals that crossed your path, the ones that looked at you like they knew you. What did they teach you? Share your story in the comments below, because the wild's lessons are meant to be passed on. And hey, if this moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that make your heart race and your soul sing.